Welcome to Free Marketing Fridays. Change things up a little bit just so that we can really kind of focus and use our available attention spans, which seem to be shorter and shorter and shorter. So now it's about 10 minutes where I give you super actionable advice, give or take, uh, that you can use today so that you can work smarter and not necessarily harder. So today we are going to be talking about customer surveys, but specifically the foundational stuff you need to think through before you even sit down to write a single survey question. So technically anybody with a credit card and a SurveyMonkey account can run a survey, but do you really want just anybody running a survey and possibly pissing off your customers? No, not really. So we don't want that. And today we're not going to be talking about NPS surveys. We are going to be talking about the customer surveys where you want more in-depth opinions and feedback and usually give them more than one question to answer in that process. So today is all about the fundamentals, how to plan for it, the tools to use, how to set goals, that kind of thing. So let's get started. If we haven't met before, my name is Sunny Hunt. I'm the Chief Customer Nerd here at Hunt Interaction. We reverse engineer your best fit customers and turn those unique insights into practical plans you and your team can use immediately. Worked with all of these companies and more on solving their customer growth and customer success problems. And despite the fact that these companies look very, very different from each other, they all have fairly similar customer problems to solve, and they tend to look a lot like each other. It's mostly about finding and filling those really kind of nitpicky success gaps in the customer journey. So all the little decisions that you need to make about a survey, we're going to be talking about those right now. Like this is what you need to know before you start outlining or even really thinking in depth about what that survey looks like. You need to understand why you're sending a survey in the first place. What question is it that you're trying to answer? Really, what is it? If you don't have a specific question, you have to get one. You don't want to send a survey, hey, just to check in. Nobody wants that. No one's going to answer it. So typically some of the common reasons we see for sending a survey would be understanding that purchase decision and the criteria that went into making that decision, evaluating onboarding experiences, maybe understanding why your customers stick around for a long time and the value that they get from your customer or from your product or your service. And then understanding, and maybe it's about features, like how are you using this new feature and what's working for you and why are you not using that feature? And then understanding why customers left. So these are all fairly specific business questions, but understanding the question that you need to answer is going to dictate how you structure everything else in your survey. So you also want to understand what kind of data you want to get out of your survey. Typically, there are two big types of data: quantitative, which is like ones and zeros, where you could just go through and count numbers, and then qualitative, where you have more open-ended questions and more quality or touchy-feely types of answers. Which types of survey you send will determine, number one, how many responses you need to get in order for that survey to be meaningful. So with quantitative data, you should have statistical significance or a percentage of the audience that you're sending it to. And then qualitative data, you are looking for relevance and thematic saturation. You need to know what happens when you start hearing the same core insights over and over and over again from the same buyers. That is what thematic saturation actually looks like. And now I know I'm going through this really fast, but what kind of tools should you use? But a better question is like, what do you actually have access to? If you guys already have a SurveyMonkey subscription, great, use that. You probably don't need much more than that. But if you don't have a survey tool, there are a couple of things that you need to take into consideration before you go out and just like slap plastic and get the next tool that's out there. Like, what size business are you running? Startups may have very different needs and budget requirements versus enterprise customers, which may also have a procurement exercise that they actually have to go through and approval processes. But then also, how complex is your survey? There are different technical features that each of these survey tools offer you. So you can actually do logic-based like themes and branches, lots of different ways to actually have different features and customize that survey, but you need to understand how complex your survey might be before you go out and pick a tool. So I recommend when you're getting ready to send out your survey, you need to get it in front of people, but I typically recommend delivering the survey or the request for a survey via email. The reason for that is you're going to get about 80% of your responses within about 24 hours if you send it out through email. It's a really fast, quick turn on that. So when you're sending via email, you have two options. You can either send it via a familiar domain name. I recommend using your company domain name. So if you're working for Sephora, you'll want to be sending a survey from Sephora, right? Or you can also send it from a well-known survey tool. So you don't want to pick like some weird off-the-shelf, random, brand new survey tool that nobody recognizes, because your customers and your respondents are going to need to be able to trust you before they agree to take your survey. And you also need to stand apart in the email inbox. If you are not standing apart, you are never going to get your survey email opened, and then you're never going to get a response. You have to stand apart, and you need to understand exactly what your customers or what your audience uses for tone and voice, or what type of hook they need in order to see in their inbox to elicit that click. Your subject line has one job: it's to get your email opened. It's got to stand out. This is an example of what not to do with the subject line. Like, this is from Lowe's. They basically said, hey, we appreciate you and your feedback. Give us 5 minutes. One thing that they did right here was they told me exactly how long it was going to take, and they sent it from Lowe's, from the Lowe's domain. But it didn't stand out for me, and it wasn't really appealing to me. And I was like, you know what? No, Lowe's, no, I don't want to give you 5 minutes. So I didn't even open the email. And if they had given me maybe a different subject line, I might have opened it. And you cannot send a survey to everybody. You can't do that. You have to be specific about who you're sending your survey to, and it has to align with a couple of different things. If you try to send your survey to everybody, you're going to be overwhelmed, and you're going to get a lot of crappy responses that you're going to have to sift through. You've got to be specific. So, who gets your survey? So, first things, your respondents need to align with the reason that you're sending the survey in the first place. Remember that big North Star question, like, why are we sending the survey in the first place? Your respondents need to align with that. If you're going to be sending a brand awareness survey, it could be for audiences or customers, but you wouldn't want to send like an onboarding survey to a group of customers who haven't actually gone through that onboarding experience. So there's definitely alignment that needs to happen there. So some common respondent groups would include like a paid panel. You could actually pay for respondents who could be customers, and they could be audience members. They could be your competitors' customers. You can send it to audiences, specifically your audience that maybe they've signed up for your newsletter, but they haven't purchased from you yet. That might be an interesting respondent panel or respondent group. You can also send them to customers. Lots of different customer segments here, different products, different customer life cycle stages, lots of different ways to slice and dice this customer set. And you can also send it to former customers. But be specific about your respondent group, and then segment the crap out of it so that you get quality responses that are meaningful when you send your survey. Now let's talk about response rates. What kind of response rate should you get? I always get this question from clients who are like, okay, so we're going to send out the survey. Like, what kind of response rate should we expect? This is a very, very good question. And I hate giving this answer, but it really does just kind of depend. It depends on your respondent segment. It depends on the product that you're working with. It depends on the time of year and how crowded inboxes and attention spans are. And also even requests for surveys sent from your domain versus the survey provider domain, that also impacts your response rates. Typically, what I have seen in the past is B2C customers will get about a 10 to 20% response rate. B2B and SaaS customers will probably get a 20 to 25%. This, again, your mileage will vary on all of these response rates, but if you need to kind of generalize and kind of like put your finger into the wind and kind of measure what you think was happening, general guidelines. Your former customers, 2 to 10%. This one's really tricky. If you send it to an audience, someone who hasn't bought from you using your domain as the email sender, about 7%. And then an audience, if you send from the survey provider's domain, is about 2 to 5%. And this is for former customers and audiences. That's also including an incentive. So let's talk about incentives. Should you send an incentive or a little carrot or a reward for taking your survey? Again, it kind of depends. General rule of thumb is the more motivated you and your business are to get that response, get those responses, get them quickly, and also the bigger ask for your respondents. So if you're sending out a longer survey or it's a trickier customer segment to get in front of, the more I would lean towards offering an incentive. So different incentives could look like no incentive at all, right? You don't always have to send an incentive. You could offer an incentive to a paid panel, but they are already getting paid. So they already have an incentive to answer your survey. You could offer free services like a month of subscription for whatever service that you're offering if you're a SaaS company. You could also offer an individual gift card. Amazon and Visa gift cards work really well. You could also do a giveaway. You could pool a group of completed survey respondents and then pick one who gets a larger kind of meatier prize. And you could also do a donation on behalf of the company for a nonprofit that you know your customers are aligned with. Here's an example of a donation. So American Express will basically, they pool up to a certain dollar amount, and then they kind of like slice and dice it between three different nonprofits. So as long as you answer their survey. Here is an incomplete list of ways to absolutely screw up your survey. It's a test. Don't look at it before it's done. Don't talk about the results before the survey is closed. And if your leadership asks, talk about the response rate that you're currently getting and the survey completion rate instead of peeking under the hood. Just tell them, hey, the survey's not done yet. I don't want to tell you any type of early responses because we haven't had a chance to consolidate and make sure that all the responses are valid, all kinds of different stuff. And then do not cross your respondent streams. You can't mix respondent types and expect to compare and contrast them. The audience is not the same as your customers, and your current customers are not the same as your lapsed or churned customers. And generally speaking, you shouldn't be asking them the same questions anyway, because there's a different motivation for answering a survey in the first place. So wrapping all of this up, your bottom line, why are you sending a survey? You have to have some type of a North Star or objective for sending your survey in the first place. What tool are you going to use? Do you need to go buy one? Do you have one that's available to you? Do you have access to that tool? All things to consider. How are you sending it? How are you sending this? And then who are the respondents? Who is that specific group of people you want to take that survey that directly aligns with the objective for sending the survey in the first place? And then how are you setting expectations about results? Your leadership's going to be like, hey, so that survey that we invested in, what's the status of that? So making sure that you establish timelines, milestones, expectations for delivery and processing, all kinds of stuff. So now I have something great for you. You can go ahead and download the customer survey reference guide that I put together for you. So it's all of this information and a bunch more, including a lot of other additional ways to completely screw up your survey before you send it. You're definitely going to want to download it. I will include the link in the description below if you're watching this on the replay. And if not, then I will send this in an email to everybody who is here today. And thank you so much for spending time with me today. If you're watching this on the replay and you found this helpful, I would really appreciate it if you just give a thumbs up or leave a comment. And if you really liked it, share this with someone you think would get some really great value out of this. So thanks for attending. I will see you next week on Free Marketing Fridays.